Let's see. Todd's not here. Todd has resigned from the board officially now, so I don't have a report on there. There is the, let's see, Rosalynn should have a nice report along. Okay.
Everybody in here has one of these.
Oh, okay.
They don't.
We don't.
Oh, sorry. This was the budget that I passed out at the last meeting.
We were at the hospital.
Okay, this is my report, the treasurer's report. In September of this, 2010, the checking account for the association was down to $723.20. For this reason, it became necessary to cash in one of the CDs that the association is holding. The value of the CD was $10,025.77. Actually, it was $975.77, but in order to avoid paying a penalty, I had to up it to $10,000, and I took $25 out of the regular checking account so that we could open up a money market fund. Well, it turns out on that money market fund that you can't, you have to keep the amount of money in the money market fund at $10,000. If I took any money out of the $10,000, there would have been a 15% penalty per month that would have been charged by the bank. So at that point, I cashed the whole thing in and put it into our checking account, and the amount, $10,025.77, was, well, some of that was interest that was earned on that money in that little bit of time. But in any case, that is what was deposited in our checking account. We still have a remaining CD in the amount of $12,268.87. Hopefully, in time, we can purchase another CD. By December 27th, 2010, the checking account balance was again down to $703.77. And because of that reason was why we had to raise the dues this year. Because we just ran out of money and we're trying to cover too many things with the amount of money that we had. It may seem the amount that we need to up it is only 10%. And it seems like a lot, but there are other homeowners associations in the area that are charging more than we are charging. Yeah.
By a lot.
By a lot of money. Some charge more than that, just quarterly. Okay, for the fiscal year 2010, the Homeowners Association spent the following on major expenses. One of which was a carryover from 209. I included it because that money was coming out of the checking account. And the first thing was pumps. We received an invoice dated November 18, 2009 for the East Lake fountains. It was $3,711. On March 11th, 2010, for the back fountain, there was an invoice that was paid $3,077. And we had received another invoice dated April 23rd for the front fountain's motor replacement. That was $3,436 period. There was also another invoice dated November 27th, 2010 for 2 motor control timers. And that was $312. So basically, it was from November of 2009 through December 6th, 2010, we spent $10,536 on the pumps.
Do you know if there's any guarantee on the work by Jacobson?
I don't know that.
Because the back fountain is working, but it's in need of some maintenance.
We're aware of that, and there is work being done on it. Dan, would you like to?
When he says back fountain, do you mean the back one in the rear or the one up front of the subdivision?
The one in the back.
I don't know anything about that one, but I'll tell you about the one up front. We discovered that the circuit breaker that controls it and the lighting had come loose and had basically essentially burned up. It was destroyed. I replaced it. I forgot to bring the bill of $235, $60, something like that. I told the board I was gonna go ahead and fix it. But we've left it in the off position, because we're afraid to run the pump, we don't know if there's enough water in it. We were gonna check with Jacobson, I don't know what the result of that is, that's how I left it. I just forgot to bring the bill or run it today, so. We repaired the damage to the back, to the front pump. I don't know anything about the one in the back, when I stood up, I didn't know what we were talking about exactly.
This is Dan Kimball, he's on our ballot.
Okay.
So-
Kimball Electric Company, just so you know, that left to work with me, the electrician. Kimball Electric Company here in Oak Ridge.
Okay.
I may want to ask Dan, I was going to ask Jason, but whichever could answer it. I've had a lot of pumps in my life coming up of a ranch. How do these pumps get to be $3,700 and $3,000 and things like that? Are there really pumps that are far bigger than I think they are? Because I think they're like 2-horse pumps.
The one in the back is 5 horse.
Okay.
The one in the front, I want to say is 1.5, maybe 2 horse, but the one in the back
Okay, let me ask this
But-
question.
for the cost, your guess is as good as mine.
For
I've been around.
my belief, and this is saying they rebuilt the pumps, right? They didn't replace the pumps?
Correct.
How much would it have cost to have not messed around with them and just went out and bought new pumps?
Well, unfortunately, Todd's not here to answer it because this was his
Keep
department.
going.
So
I guess
I
what I'm
really
saying
hate to-
is I would like to see whoever's in charge of that, because that seems to be the smart way to go. How much, like when I have Dave come over and work on my pump, how much is it to fix it? How much is it just to replace the damn thing?
It depends on, I know.
My swimming pool pump
Yeah.
is far cheaper to replace it than to mess with it.
Well, this was, at the time, we were going through that, it was more money, or it's trying to be conservative about it, and I don't know if we actually were in the long run. Do you remember prices? Or it's on the.
There were so many people that called and got prices for pumps that were far cheaper than what we paid. And unfortunately, the person who has those answers isn't here.
Now,
So
this
it's kinda-
gentleman that was here, he's gonna be the one that takes care of it from now on?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be like-
The organizational meeting, yes, we're hoping, yes.
Wait, if he's elected, he's going to be
Yes.
the one. Could I ask you, would you,
Did a train go by and miss?
yeah. Could I ask you, would you ask what the upfront price of new over rebuilt would be whenever there's something to go? Because a pump, I've had pumps my whole life on ranches.
I'm with you. Let me give you some general information concerning these pumps so you start to understand why it's so much money. They are on a floating assembly. You have to have a pretty good sized piece of equipment.
It's the R&R of the pump, it isn't the price of the pump.
It's an awful lot of intense labor. As you may imagine, this thing is of sufficient size out there. They gotta drag it out. So it is a bunch of labor that's intensity.
I thought the pump was on ground and they were running a
No,
pipe.
sir.
and a big
I'd
flex
love
pipe.
it to be that kind of system, but it's not.
Why couldn't, the next time we have any major grief, why couldn't we go to that? Would that make sense?
I do not have, not qualified to answer that question, but we could pursue that as an option, but that is not typical of the installation of these types of pumps. Typically, they're on this floating assembly, so you'd be doing something different than is done in typical.
Okay,
In
but-
the ancient days, you would be right, old fountains had a dislocated motor.
Well, this is a better way to do it. I think though what I would like to hear somebody check is a pump, unless it gets hit by electrical storm. I've had them 20 years old, some of them 10 years old, so I put it 10 years old. So if we're running anywhere close up towards 10 years, it makes sense to me to spend 30% more and buy a new one.
Not sure exactly what happened on that round. Can't attest to it. I think it was probably a dollars and cents decision made at that time that they thought, and on the recommendation of the guy Jacobson, to do it the way we did it.
But you, if you get voted into this, you would be not only capable but would check in to seeing